Hello, everybody, and welcome to Walking Between Shadows. I'm Taryn Elliott, and along with me is my amazing husband.
I'm Ben Elliott.
And we're here to talk about true crime all the time.
So, walking between shadows today, what are we going to talk about, baby?
We're going to talk about a Holly Bobo case.
Holly Bobo. Well,
do you know much about this?
I don't know a lot about it. I wasn't in Tennessee when that was all going on.
It is very interesting. And there's a lot of things that I did not know that I thought I knew.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to discuss today.
All right, well, tell me all about it.
Well, Holly Bobo was a 20-year-old nursing student at UT Martin. She lived at home with her mom and her dad, Karen and Dana Bobo, and her brother Clint. And Holly had a pretty normal life. I mean, she loved to be outside, ride four-wheelers, and she was in the choir at church and well-liked in the small community.
What community was it?
This is in Darden, Tennessee. Or you know where that is?
Yeah, Darden. It's near the river, near the Tennessee River between Middle and West Tennessee.
And it's not far from where we grew up.
Maybe an hour from our house.
And I remember this. Do you remember this case?
I remember it, but like I said, I wasn't really there, and I knew some of the characters involved on the legal side, and like Hansel McAdams was real good friends with my family, and I actually went before him for a case in Henry County years ago. But yeah, that's about all I know about it.
Well, Holly's mom, Karen, was a school teacher at Scotts Hill Elementary School, second grade teacher. And her dad worked for a tree service company out of McKenzie. And Clint, her brother, was working part-time at a nursing home and getting his degree in social work at UT Martin.
And Clint was her older or younger brother?
He was 5 years older, so he was 25 years old at this time.
I got you.
This is 2011.
Okay.
And Holly had a boyfriend. His name was Drew Scott. He had just given her a promise ring over Christmas, and they were getting pretty serious. And Holly had her stuff together. I mean, she was getting ready for her life, and she really enjoyed life. Her and her mama seemed to be super close to one another. I mean, spent all their free time together and shopped together and just really enjoyed each other's time. On the morning of April 13th, 2011, it was a normal morning. Karen got up to get ready for school. This was a Wednesday morning. She noticed that Clint's bedroom door was open. His TV was on, kind of loud. Shuts his door, and she goes by Holly's and sees the light on. So she opens the door, and Holly's sitting on her bed studying for a nursing test she had that day. And she told her mom that she'd been there since about 4:30, been up studying. You know, my son went to nursing school, and I remember how much he had to study. And they had tests like every day.
Yeah.
So she was up preparing for that. And Karen went about her morning getting ready for school, packed Holly's lunch. She seemed like a mother that did a whole lot for her kids. Very hands-on and wanted to make sure they had everything they needed. She remembered that Holly might need a little gas money and put a $20 bill in her wallet while Holly was taking a shower. And Karen leaves for work by 7 a.m. So Clint was still there in the bed. Holly was getting ready to leave. And Karen leaves at 7 o'clock that morning. Dana was already at work. He left at 5:30 that morning. So around 7:40, a neighbor of the Bobos hears a woman screaming, or a female scream, and she's saying, "Don't stop it." And at the very end, she just got pissed and said, "God damn it, don't." And it messed with him. You know, he thought, what's going on? So his wife comes out, and he asked her, did you hear that? No, I didn't hear anything. So he gets in his truck, goes for work, and he passes by the Bobos to see if he sees anything. And he doesn't see anything, but he's bothered by it. So he calls his mom, who lives there too with him, and tells her about the screams. And she calls Karen at work. So by this time, Karen's already at work. She gets a phone call from her neighbor saying, you know, there's some screaming going on. I'm just kind of alarmed by it. Clint, by this time, his dog was barking inside, the indoor dog. And he hears it, and he wakes up, and he looks out the window, and he sees Holly and a man in camouflage who he thought was her boyfriend, Drew.
Yeah, because Drew was a hunter and stuff, too.
And Drew was going to be hunting on the family's property that day, but it was on the other side of town. It was another property, maybe a different family member's property, or maybe theirs, just on the other side of town.
So you think Holly knew what his plans were for that day?
Drew had actually sent her a text at 7:30 that morning, wanting to make sure it was okay for him to hunt on that property that day. So Holly had talked to her mother between 7:30 and 7:40. Her mom said, yeah, that's fine. So she sent Drew a text and said, it's fine. But Clint thought it was Drew. He just woke up, you know, what's going on? He looks out the window, he sees somebody in camo, who he thought's Drew, and Holly kneeling, and Holly saying, no, why? And sounds very upset. But he doesn't, you know, he thought they were breaking up. That's what he thought was going on. And he didn't want to get involved really, but he calls his mom, and he says, is Holly going to school today, or is she hunting with Drew? And she said, what do you mean? He said, Holly, you know, there's somebody out there with Holly. And she said, well, it's not Drew. Go get a gun and shoot him. A lot of people think, what? You know, and I think Clint probably thought that too, but I really think that this bond with Karen and Holly was that strong. She knew something was wrong. She'd gotten a phone call from the neighbor, something going on. Everything was happening at once. Then Clint calls and says, Drew's here. You know, what's going on? Drew's not there. He's on the other side of town. So Clint looks back out the window and sees Holly being led by this man out into the woods behind the house. He goes and gets his gun, puts pants on, he runs out there. And by that time, they're gone. Karen had already called 911. Clint's calling 911. And very shortly after, the authorities arrive and they're giving their statements. But nobody is, you know, Karen's begging, put roadblocks up. Amber Alert. We need an Amber Alert. Well, the law is that if a child is over 17 years old, or the law was, if a child is 17 years old or younger is the only age that could be to get an Amber Alert.
Is this part of the reason they developed like the silver alerts and
Right.
the expansion of Amber
Yes.
happened after this?
Yeah, there's been expansions to it.
Okay.
And this did have something to do with it because it was like everybody was standing around, hurry up and wait. And they had already gotten her phone records and showed that she was moving north.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody was getting there. You know, it wasn't. So, a couple days later, on the 15th of April, they find Holly's lunchbox pretty close to the Bobo's home.
Right here in these woods, this is where they found her lunchbox. We learned that from investigators. But to learn more about Holly, we went to her family and sat down exclusively with her cousin, Whitney Duncan. With the same kind of emotion she'd normally save for her music,
First time that I ever saw your face.
country singer Whitney Duncan talked about her cousin, Holly Bobo.
She's beautiful. She's sweet. She's a good Christian girl, you know, kind of shy, quiet girl until you get to know her. And then she's just funny and sweet, and she's amazing.
In this exclusive interview with ABC News, Duncan fought back tears as she described the 20-year-old nursing student as a homebody who was like her little sister.
The family right now is trying to be strong. You know, it doesn't seem real. You know, that's the last phone call you ever expect to get, you know? And it's a close family, so we're just trying to hold it together.
She says the only thing that gets them through right now is prayer. That and the community's support.
It's really moving and makes us feel great that people out there, they do care so much, and they're trying to find her and they want her home.
She's had many sleepless nights since Wednesday morning when Holly's 25-year-old brother watched from inside the family home as a man in camouflage led her into the woods. Only after he found blood on the driveway did he suspect something was wrong and called 911. We witnessed her parents' agonizing grief.
Holly, I love you so much. Please try to get home to us.
Friday afternoon, police expanded the search area and focused on a wooded area where they found her lunchbox. Investigators asked for 200 additional volunteers. More than 1,100 showed up.
Does it kind of feel like you're looking for a needle in a haystack?
Yes, ma'am.
One volunteer found this duct tape and told police it had blonde hair stuck to it. Sunday morning, most of the searching was for answers from above.
But we're not going to quit looking, and we're not going to quit searching until we find her.
Investigators now believe the abductor probably wasn't traveling on foot, and once again, they're asking the public for help.
Think about somebody that you know who maybe cleaned out a car, reported a vehicle or an ATV stolen, excessively cleaned the ATV, or some unusual behavior.
Officials and her family are hopeful someone will know something.
We just want her back, no matter if you know, if anybody knows anything, that they might not even feel would be important, but if it is anything, any details, anything weird that they've seen, they'll just come forward with all that. I mean, I hope they come forward with any information that could lead to getting her back.
Her final thoughts?
We need to go search. That's it.
$25,000 reward The $25,000 reward continues to grow, and families hopeful that people will continue to make donations. Meanwhile, investigators say they've received more than 250 tips that they're currently following up on.
After that, it's like, what happened? Because it seemed like it was. Years go by. No Holly. No, I mean, if you can remember the signs that were up and the people looking, and she had a cousin that was a famous country singer that had put out, you know, they had reward money. I mean, there was...
trucking companies were painting the backs of their trailers.
It was
her
unbelievable.
picture.
And people with all good intentions came to search, and it ruined the crime scene. I mean, not by purpose, but they were just trampling all over it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, March of 2014, after nearly 3 years of searching and investigations from the TBI, and they really looked into this man by the name of Terry Britt, who was a known sex offender, rapist. You know, he was a nasty man.
Yeah.
His alibi did not follow through. It wasn't true, you know, so that they really, one guy on the TBI by the name of Terry Dykes really got tunnel vision for this Terry Britt, and lost focus and lost time and efforts and resources, and ended up getting expelled from the case because he was so focused on this Terry Britt guy. And as nasty as he was, he may have had some involvement, but I don't think he did, just because he didn't get the chance to get to her first. He was known to love and stalk young blonde girls that look like Holly. So that was the thing. But in March and April of 2014, after nearly 3 years, they call them the the Gang A, I believe, because all of them had last names of A. So there was Zach and Dylan Adams and their brothers, and there was Shane Alston, and there was Jason Autry. They're all arrested and charged in kidnapping and disappearance. On September 8th of 2014, remains were found by a ginseng hunter in the woods of Decatur County.
So this was 3+ years later.
Yes. This was
In his own words, and for the very first time, we are hearing from the man who found Holly Bobo's remains.
Larry Stone was actually out hunting the woods for the herb ginseng when he made that gruesome discovery. He spoke exclusively with our Chris Conte. And Chris, he's frustrated by how slowly this is going in court.
Yeah, he is incredibly frustrated, Vicky, with how this has been proceeding lately. Photojournalist Angie Dones and myself actually met Larry last year, the day after he found Holly's remains. At the time, he was too emotional and too scared to speak publicly. But tonight, in an exclusive interview, the man who accidentally broke this case wide open is staying silent no more.
It consumed everybody. It's all anybody talked about. This was the first paper that after the disappearance.
If Crystal Osier had a choice,
That stuff doesn't happen here.
then these headlines tucked away in the corner of a Lexington library wouldn't be here.
It says the searching, the questions, the prayers continue on the 6th day following the mysterious April 13th disappearing of the 20-year-old Holly Bobo from her rural Decatur County home.
This county,
There's not a day that goes by that you don't think about it.
these people,
Volunteers prove relentless during Holly Bobo's search.
that girl, never chose any of this.
So for this to happen in our own backyard, it was scary. It says here an estimated 1,200 showed up to search.
They searched by ground, they searched by air, and they searched within themselves.
We were looking for somebody that we weren't sure if we were ever going to find.
Until one day, last September, on the seemingly interminable road to finding Holly led here.
You'll kind of walk and look.
Serendipity is a word often pinned on someone who finds something they aren't looking for.
And we'd walk right down this ridge right here.
But by his own admission,
And ginseng sort of looks like these baby hickory trees.
Larry Stone will tell you anytime he was ginseng hunting these past 4 years, he wasn't just looking for a plant.
You're almost the perfect person to be searching for her.
Well, 90% of the people that finds people are hunters.
He knew about this spot off County Corner Road because his father poured the concrete for the cell tower 30 years ago.
Well, I can show you the exact path I took.
Larry was right around here last September when he found a bucket.
I was facing the ravine this way, and it was like somebody, hey, turn around, here I am.
He turned around and then found something that would change this case forever.
You're standing there looking at remains that you know belongs to somebody that was loved, and you're sitting there looking at the ground, and you're seeing your daughter laying there in her place. It hits home.
The TBI would later confirm what Larry felt in his heart. Those remains were Holly Bobo's.
Do you think Holly would still be out here if you hadn't found her?
Oh, I believe she would have. I don't think they'd ever found her. They was trying to hide her best they could.
For 8 months, he's stayed silent. But after watching various aspects of the case against Zach Adams and Jason Autry essentially be fumbled in court, silence, he says, is no longer an option.
To these defense attorneys that are saying, we haven't seen evidence that Holly's skull was found, you say what?
It's been found.
You finding her helps the case exponentially.
Well, no body, no case. And that's what these men had planned. No body, no case.
If those dental records are in fact correct, Larry will always be the man who found Holly Bobo.
Kind of set up a little memorial for Holly and to show the family that I cared.
He may look like a tough country guy.
Holly's favorite colors, pink and green.
But he has the tender heart of a dad.
I just want to say to the Bobos that I'm sorry for the loss. that all got shattered because of these men.
This was, I mean, 2014, so September 2014. But they had already charged in March, but nobody, at that time. So it was basically just circumstantial.
So how did they get there that they charged them?
This is what gets me, because I feel like they had, I'll tell you what I found out looking into this. Karen Bobo hired a private investigator. I want to say her name was Wasowski. Do you remember this lady that she also did the Lauren A.G. case?
Yeah, Wachowski.
Her.
Yeah.
So she has a team. She's a licensed private investigator, and actually got her degree after her roommate was murdered years and years ago when she was in college, and she ended up solving that murder 20 years later.
Yeah.
So she's pretty
very well respected and
very well
respected.
respected.
Yeah.
She took on this case for free for Karen Bobo, for the Bobos, because she wanted to help her. You could look at Karen Bobo during this time and just see her pain. It was heart-wrenching. She ended up leaving her job. It was terrible.
Now before you move on to that, this private investigator, she had like former FBI agents and lawyers and police and retired investigators that worked for her. She had teams of people.
She had a team of 2 retired investigators and a paralegal and I believe an attorney and herself. So they had, by Halloween of 2013, I want to say 2013. Now I might be wrong. I'm gonna check that. It could have been 2012. It was.
So it was long before they made an arrest and a charge.
By Halloween of 2012, they showed an email where they had Shane Austin's name, that he was, connected along with Zach Adams, Jason Autry, and Dylan Adams. So but what gets me is the TBI came in on them hard, on this private investigator and her team, and shut them down, and did not even go and ask these 4 guys for an alibi until years after. They weren't arrested 2014. This private investigator knew this before. So, I mean, and also during this time, I believe, when they were doing this investigation, this private investigator was, Elizabeth Smart came down, and her dad, and they were talking to the school, and the town, Darden or in Parsons. And that brought a lot of attention to Holly too. So that was a big deal. And then we'll go to February of 2015. They were all in custody, and except I guess Shane Austin was out and not in custody at the time. And he was found in Florida in a hotel after committing suicide.
Right now, developing news in the Holly Bobo murder case. A man who was expected to be a key witness for the prosecution is now dead. Fox 17's Megan O'Halloran joins us live in Decatur County with more on this unexpected twist. Megan?
Well, Shane Austin apparently committed suicide. His family notified his lawyer, and his lawyer, Luke Evans, confirmed that information with us. However, the TBI is not commenting on this developing story. Now, Shane Austin has been a highly controversial person in this case, and tonight we're in Decatur County to find out if and how this will impact the Holly Bobo murder trial. Take a look at this. This is Shane Austin in court last May. The state offered Austin an immunity deal in the murder case. In exchange, he would lead investigators to Bobo's body. Prosecutor said Austin did not cooperate and took the deal off the table. Austin and his lawyer then sued. Tonight, the Decatur County Sheriff has some questions about that immunity deal. If it was taken away, should Shane Austin have been behind bars?
If he were charged with something and incarcerated somewhere, his chances of being alive to testify would be much better, yes.
What everyone is wondering tonight, what exactly was Shane Austin's role in Holly Bobo's murder, and does he have the answer to questions we may never know? Coming up tonight at 10, does the sheriff think Shane Austin's death will be a major loss at trial? Again, that's tonight on Fox 17 News.
So he committed suicide, which was detrimental to the
Yeah,
case.
because remind everybody, Shane Austin was the guy that was the sex offender, and
No, Shane Austin wasn't. Shane Austin was, that was Terry Britt. Shane Austin was part of the four guys that were involved in this,
Gotcha.
kidnapping and taking Holly from her house.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, they found him. He was supposed to tell them where the body was, but either he wouldn't or he couldn't. So that's how that went. And I think that's why they let him out for a short period of time. And he was in the custody of a retired police officer for some reason. And he was supposed to tell them where Holly's body was and turn star state witness like we find out that Jason Autry does. In September of 2017, Zach Adams is tried for Holly's murder, along with kidnapping and rape, and sentenced to life for 25 years. Jason Autry turned state and star. He went star witness on him. And the things he said in that courtroom were horrible. And it went kind of like this. Shane Austin supposedly went and got Holly from her house and took her. He had something in his hand at that time. I believe it was a gun. And took her. They think that they had a vehicle parked close by. Took her there. Then it shoots over to Jason Autry's statement where he says that he pulls up to Zach Adams' house on April the 13th around 8 something in the morning and to buy some meth or some morphine. And when he pulls up there, Shane Austin is there, and so is Zach Adams. And Zach is saying, I need help getting rid of this body. I need some help.
Mm-hmm.
And why? Jason says, sure. But I guess he does. He assumes that it's an associate by the name of JoJo, or somebody they call JoJo, that owed Zach some money. And then Zach goes into saying, no, this is Holly Bobo. And tells him about they took her to a barn on some of their property. This old rundown place, and they raped her and they drugged her and wrapped her up in a farm blanket like a quilt. And that's what she was in when Jason Autry pulled up.
Good evening. Shock and disbelief on the fourth day of the Holly Bobo murder trial as the state's star witness, Jason Autry, tells all.
Tonight, we know the heartbreaking details of the nursing student's final moments alive and the gruesome effort to cover up the crime. All of it playing out in Hardin County, where News Channel 5's Chris Conti is right now. Chris, some major bombshells today.
The biggest of which, Vicky, was an allegation that Zach Adams went to Holly's Bobo's home in April of 2011 to show her brother how to make meth. If true, it would mean that Clint Bobo could have been the catalyst that set this entire ordeal into motion. We expected drama here today, but nothing like what unfolded.
The truth. That's what everyone inside this courthouse wanted to hear today.
State your first and last name and spell it.
Jason Autry. But if this was the truth, we quickly learned it would be difficult to stomach.
The body didn't weigh very much.
Jason Autry is no stranger to courtrooms. He, like his one-time friend Zach Adams, is accused of killing, kidnapping, and raping Holly Bobo.
But I did not kidnap, I did not rape, and I did not kill Miss Bobo. And I did not. But I lied and said that I didn't have no details to it.
It was all so matter-of-fact today. Poetic in a sense. as he laid out how he met Zach Adams to buy meth the day Holly went missing.
And he said, I need you to help me bury this body.
In the back of a pickup truck, he told jurors, was Holly.
The body was laying in a multicolored farm blanket.
The plan, Autry testified, drive to the Tennessee River, gut the nursing student's body, and throw her in so she wouldn't float.
And I grabbed the upper torso of Miss Bobo. Zach come around, let the tailgate down. I brought the upper torso to the end of the tailgate.
But Holly wouldn't be dumped in the river that day. She was still alive.
I see the foot move, a movement, and a sound of distress that sound like, come out of her voice, come from the blanket.
Autry then told jurors that Zach went into his pickup truck and grabbed a gun.
Boom! The gun went off.
One shot. If true, the testimony would be consistent with a medical examiner showing a bullet hole in Holly's skull. The most shocking part of the day, though, when Autry said Zach Adams went to Holly's house the day she was kidnapped to visit her brother.
The real reason that we were there was to show Clint how to manufacture meth. He said we got there early. She come outside screaming and raising hell.
They came here seeking the truth today. No one knew, though, that this is what we'd hear.
Quite a day that still isn't over. You are looking live inside the courtroom right now where Jason Autry is still on the stand some 6 hours later. He is being cross-examined now by Zach Adams' defense attorney. A few other notable things that happened here today. We learned that there was some kind of possible plot underway to have Zach Adams' brother Dylan killed after all of this because he kept talking about this alleged cover-up when Holly died. Also important to note here that Jason Autry was given an immunity deal. None of what he said here today or says here tonight can be used against him if he goes to trial. The judge here telling the jury that they will go through the evening until he is done being cross-examined. We are live in Hardin County this evening. Chris Conti, News Channel 5.
And it gave Jason Autry several immunities as well. And January of 2018, Dylan Adams, who is Zach's brother and also is not mentally competent to stand really trial, and he had made some statements that he tried to recant earlier that of his involvement in this disappearance, kidnapping, and all that, and rape. He was sentenced to, he pled to an Alford plea, and that's guilty without admitting wrongdoing. And he was sentenced to 35 years without the possibility of parole for facilitation of first-degree murder and aggravated kidnapping. In March of 2020, Governor Bill Lee signs the Holly Bobo Act into law, raising the age of missing person alerts from 18 years old to 21 years old. September of 2020, Jason Autry is released for his time served after reaching plea agreements with prosecutors before Zach Adams' trial. September 23rd of 2020, a portion of Highway 641 in Decatur County is named in Holly's honor. December 2020, Jason Autry is arrested in Benton County and returned to prison on charges including a felon in possession of a firearm, drug possession, and evading arrest. And all of Zach Adams' appeals have been denied. So that's where we are today with Holly Bobo's case.
So Zach's little brother was Dylan, right?
Yes.
And Dylan got 35 years on an Alford plea.
Mm-hmm.
What, I guess, you said that he was mentally incompetent of standing trial, but yet he was trying to recant statements. So it sounds to me like maybe he was coerced.
Yeah, I think so, but at the same time, I don't know what his involvement was, because when Jason Autry pulled up that day, or his statement the day he pulled up at that house, he did not see Dylan anywhere.
Yeah, there was nothing mentioned about Dylan.
No, Dylan was not. So I don't really know, what the hell they had going on with why they brought Dylan in this. And I don't know if it was maybe he was a scapegoat because he was not mentally competent. It's a possibility. I mean, watching watching Jason Autry, he sat up there and entertained everybody. I remember watching this trial, and I just watched some the past couple of days, and people were laughing at his jokes.
He was kind of a good old boy, wasn't he?
Charmer. And they were laughing at him, and I don't know why, but his testimony was pretty believable, and he's nothing but a liar. This was a meth ring. At first, they tried to say Jason Autry tried to say that the reason why they were over at Holly's house that day, or that Shane Austin went to Holly's house that day, and Zach Adams, was to teach Clint Bobo how to make methamphetamine.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said something about Holly's cousin talking to Zach and promising a threesome with Zach, which is, really, I don't know.
Far-fetched.
But very far-fetched. What they were doing there that day is probably very meth-fueled, and somebody was watching her.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was watching her. Come to find out, Karen Bobo had taught Jason Autry and Zach Adams in school. And they still, they did this to her child.
Mm-hmm.
And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
But the case is, and then with the TBI going in on this private investigator, and they ran in her home, and threatened to put her in jail if she spoke any more about this case. It's not the first time they've dropped the ball on a major case, such as Lauren Agee, or Summer Wells, Debbie and Ambria.
Yeah. What about the girl that ran off into the woods in the middle of the night?
Caitlin Ledbetter.
Yeah.
It just seems to be a trend with the Tennessee, or the TBI, it just...
The TBI came down so hard on this not-for-profit group of private investigators, they felt they couldn't even defend themselves. But now they feel it's time for you to hear their story. They accuse the TBI of bullying, intimidation, and abuse. The Holly Bobo case was ice cold. 18 months after her disappearance, a desperate Karen Bobo contacted a Nashville private investigator named Sheila Wysocki. Wysocki made national news for solving her college roommate's cold case murder 20 years after it happened. Karen Bobo saw her on television and asked her to help with the case. Wysocki and her not-for-profit Without Warning came to the Bobo's house and collected everything the Bobos had gathered since the disappearance. An incredible amount of tips, handwritten notes, interviews the Bobos had conducted, and social media posts.
We were paid nothing. Not one of us was paid a dime. It actually cost us money to work on the case.
Then why'd you do it?
To help a mom. If I were in that situation, I would want someone to help me. And I knew I had the best people that could help her.
2 private eyes, 2 former homicide detectives, and a paralegal. And by Halloween of 2012, they already had a prime suspect. Here's that email. Shane Austin. Beatty agreed, noting that his friends, Dylan Adams, Jason Autry, and Zach Adams, may have also been involved.
It was really clear that I said if one of these guys did it, they all did it because they were each other's alibis. And I thought that was just, from a layperson standpoint, that was very obvious.
By April of 2013, the group of super sleuths had the A-gang, Austin, Adams, and Autry, as their main suspects. They had a ping map of Holly's cell phone locations the day she disappeared, and an evidence map. And they had something else, advice from famous kidnapping victim Elizabeth Smart's father, Ed, who told the Bobos, keep the story in the media, and no tip is too small.
So that's when the detectives and the Bobos decided to go on television and talk about the evidence they had gathered. They shared theories, recreated the abduction, even drove parts of the ping map, all with the idea that maybe someone would come forward with information that would help find Holly.
These were simply our theories. We volunteered our time just to help a family.
And what happened?
I believe we were stomped as hard as anybody has ever been stomped. They wanted us to go away and shut up. And they did a good job. I mean, they stomped hard.
Stomped by the TBI. First, the TBI attacked them in the media. Without warning, did not conduct investigation to law enforcement standards. The erroneous television reports have led to false leads, public concern, and have wasted valuable state resources, said TBI Director Mark Gwynn. Harmful to the case, misleading, detrimental. But now we know on the very day of the press release, the TBI was lost. The TBI lead investigator believed Terry Britt abducted Holly. They had stopped investigating the A-gang.
I was wasting my time.
Wasting your time doing what?
Investigating these idiots.
And then the TBI admits the magnitude of that error.
Was it a mistake?
Yes, it was a mistake.
Was it a bad mistake?
Yes, sir.
Is it 3 years later you figure out how bad it was?
Yeah. That's right.
Think about this for a moment. The TBI didn't even check the alibis of the A-gang, while the private investigators have the A-gang on the top of their suspect list.
Right. It is very profound to look back and see that we were on the right track.
The TBI was through investigating the A-gang, but they weren't through investigating without warning. They got judicial subpoenas, sent men to Wysocki's home, and interrogated her.
They were intimidating me. They were threatening me. They were aggressive.
All for information the detectives say they volunteered to give the TBI before ever going on television. Wysocki says she spent thousands on a defense attorney, worried that she was going to jail. She says they subpoenaed her Google account and got all of her emails, including personal emails, to her family and attorney. Humiliating and expensive for a woman who just wanted to help.
I will not do a case like this again. And I try not to work in Tennessee because I was threatened. And one of the things I was told is don't speed. Are you kidding me? I'm a law-abiding person helping a family, and I'm told not to speed. That's a little over the edge.
And not the only story of bullying in the Holly Bobo case. Remember ginseng hunter Larry Stone? He found Holly's skull. The bullet hole in the skull corroborated Jason Autry's story. This was a huge break in the case. But Stone says the TBI treated him poorly when he discovered Holly's remains.
Then the officer looks at me and asks me why I was out looking for Holly Bobo. And I said, well, I didn't know they'd call a search. He said, ain't nobody supposed to be looking for Holly Bobo. And I said, whoa. I said, if this was my kid or your kid, you'd be out here looking for it, wouldn't you?
Another private citizen just trying to help in a case that obviously needed a lot of help.
I think it's the scariest thing to have that kind of power to say that they were going to throw me in jail and to know that they could do it with nobody looking over them.
The TBI decided not to do an interview or answer any of our questions. I can tell you this, I was the reporter who did the story 4 years ago, and these volunteers had the 4 charged killers at the top of the list of suspects. What they want now are public hearings on how they were treated by the TBI. They don't want this to happen to any law-abiding Tennessean ever again. I'm Dennis Ferrier, Fox 17 News.
It was very sad, but you know, again, I'm glad you mentioned it. It seems like a trend where an agency just really gets it wrong.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is just another case where the TBI apparently had a lot of missteps.
They also, it seems to me that TBI, with many cases, that in a few that we've covered or just even looked into, they want to be the big dogs. It doesn't really even matter if somebody has information or not.
Yeah.
They don't want it unless they find it out. I know with Summer Wells, they told everyone to stop giving them tips. Well, they ain't even found her.
Right.
And this goes the same with Lauren Agee. they threatened to put her mother in jail. No, it was the same.
It was the private investigator.
Wow.
Yeah. They basically told her to cease and desist in that investigation. And there were actually, one of the excuses the TBI had used had to do with evidence, and that maybe she was withholding evidence that she had discovered or something like that. But that wasn't true. I mean, she proved that she had shared everything in that case, and
yeah.
Again, I think it's just grandstanding is all it is.
Exactly.
With the TBI.
And it puts a hold on helping victims and their families.
Yeah, and I mean, through all the cases, especially our root case, Debbie and Ambria, we found that it is next to impossible to talk to the TBI. It's easier to talk to the FBI than the TBI.
Right.
And they don't make it easy for anybody to come forward.
No.
So it's an unfortunate thing. But
it really
in this case with Holly Bobo, I mean, another beautiful young life just snuffed out, and all probably because of meth.
Yeah, oh yeah. She was somebody they could have never had with the lifestyle they were living. And they took it.
Yep.
They took it anyway. I loved her mother. I thought her mama was the sweetest, and you could tell the dedication she had to finding and getting justice for her daughter. It was heartbreaking watching her.
And it's probably destroyed their family.
I don't think they even... The last time I saw Karen Bobo talk on, TV, she said they don't celebrate holidays and they don't...
Birthdays.
Nothing. Because Holly's gone.
Yeah.
And that was their family. And everybody grieves differently, but like I said in the beginning, I feel like they had something very strong, the two of them.
Yeah.
And it was the whole way through, Karen felt all of it, everything that Holly went through, and I think she knew. And so when it came to sentencing, the Bobos did not want him sentenced to death because they did not want to have to keep going back and reliving this over and over again.
Yeah.
And with the appeals and all the things that go along with getting death penalty, it would have just been overwhelming. So they chose to let Holly rest in peace and let them remember her as they want. So that is the story of Holly Bobo.
Well, like I said, a sad one nonetheless. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I look forward to the next one too.
Yeah, me too.
Peace in the valley for me someday. There will be peace in the valley for me.
This has been Walking Between Shadows. Again, I'm your host, Ben Elliott, and my wife, Taryn Elliott. Look for our next episodes coming soon, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button.